The stars hung like diamonds across the velvet sky of Lyrian Prime, their distant glow spilling faint light across the metallic spires of the capital city. Within the palace, an unusual quiet had settled, broken only by the soft hum of energy conduits and the occasional whisper of courtiers passing through gleaming hallways. Princess Ilara, youngest of the royal line, sat in the solarium, her long fingers brushing absent-mindedly over a holographic projection of her world. She loved this room most of all, with its panoramic view of the twin moons and the gentle warmth that seeped from the walls. Yet, despite the serenity, her heart beat faster than she thought reasonable. Across the galaxy, humans had always fascinated her people, but none had ever set foot so boldly in Lyrian Prime until the arrival of the human warrior. Kale, unlike the emissaries or traders who came with smooth words and careful protocol, Kale carried himself with an unshakable confidence, though his eyes held a calm that was uncommon in someone so strong. For Ilara, it was precisely this combination that made it impossible for her to remain relaxed. Every time he entered a room, she felt a strange flutter in her chest, as if her very being was aware of the human in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. The first time she had met him, it had been during a council meeting. Her father, King Rowland, had insisted on personally welcoming the human warrior after reports of his victories on a border world. Ilara had stayed at the back, hoping to observe without drawing attention. Kale had entered, tall and unassuming despite the armor that marked him as a seasoned fighter. There had been a moment, a mere second, when his gaze had found hers. That moment had left her breathless, and she had been certain her cheeks betrayed her shyness. She had told herself it was nothing, a mere trick of light, yet the memory haunted her. And now, weeks later, it still held its power. On this particular morning, the palace gardens were quiet, the air scented with alien blooms that shifted colors with the changing sunlight. Ilara wandered among the glowing petals, seeking the solitude that had always been her refuge. She adjusted the hem of her flowing gown, a soft azure that mirrored the sky above, and tried to calm the erratic rhythm of her heart. She told herself repeatedly that Kale was just a warrior, a guest in her world, nothing more. Yet the sound of approaching footsteps, the steady, purposeful stride that was unmistakably human made her stop mid-step. Kale appeared around the corner. His expression relaxed, his hands resting casually on the hilt of his sword. He gave her a small nod, a polite greeting that somehow sent another wave of tension through her body. Ilara forced a smile, keeping her voice steady despite the slight tremor she felt. "Good morning, Princess Ilara," he said, his tone courteous but unassuming, the way humans spoke when they did not wish to overstep. "Good morning, Kale," she replied, her eyes flicking to the ground briefly before daring to meet his gaze. "The gardens are beautiful this time of day." "They are," he agreed. "I've not seen anything like them back on Earth, or on any of the colonies I've visited." She inclined her head, wondering briefly if he truly appreciated the beauty, or if it was merely polite conversation. The hum of alien insects filled the quiet between them, and Ilara wished she could speak freely, without the constant awareness of his presence. But each time she tried, the words tangled in her throat, and she felt the familiar heat of embarrassment rising to her cheeks. Kale, however, seemed unaffected by the tension. He walked beside her, observing the plants with genuine curiosity, asking questions about their growth cycles, their adaptations to the planet's unique climate. He did not press her for attention, did not demand that she engage beyond her comfort, yet his presence was magnetic in a way she could not explain. "Do you ever feel out of place here?" he asked suddenly, his voice low, not meant for the ears of distant courtiers. Ilara blinked, caught off guard by the question. She hesitated before answering, her mind racing for the right words. "Sometimes," she admitted finally. "Even though this is my home, There are moments when I feel like an observer rather than a participant. People expect me to behave a certain way to meet their standards. It can be exhausting. Cale nodded thoughtfully, his dark eyes focused on hers. I understand, he said. I've traveled to worlds where everyone assumed I would fit a role that wasn't mine. It's difficult, trying to be both yourself and what everyone expects. For the first time, Alara felt a strange sense of relief. Here was someone who understood the delicate balance she had always struggled to maintain. Yet even as she felt this connection, her nervousness returned. She was not accustomed to sharing her vulnerabilities, and the intensity of his gaze made it harder to keep her composure. I suppose, she said softly, we all carry expectations that are not always our own. It can be difficult to breathe freely. Cale's expression softened, and he gave a small, understanding smile. Then perhaps it's worth finding someone you can be yourself with, even if only in moments like this. Alara's breath caught. She had never thought of it in such a way. Moments like this. She realized that it was rare to feel such ease with anyone, let alone someone from another world. She looked down, fiddling with the folds of her gown, trying to hide the rapid flutter of her heartbeat. The conversation drifted, flowing naturally despite her initial awkwardness. Cale asked about her studies, about her interests beyond the royal expectations. He listened without judgment, encouraged her thoughts, and shared stories of his journeys across the stars. Each anecdote, each smile, chipped away at the barrier of shyness that had always separated her from others. Yet no matter how much she wished it, she could not fully relax. She was painfully aware of the way her hands shook slightly when she gestured, the way her voice rose a little higher when she laughed. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern continued. Cale's presence was a constant, steadying force, yet paradoxically, it also heightened her self-consciousness. When they sparred in the training yard, he moved with precision, his human body strong and agile, yet he never underestimated her. He corrected her stance gently, offered tips without patronizing, and always maintained a quiet patience that both frustrated and fascinated her. She found herself thinking about him at odd moments, her mind wandering to memories of their walks in the gardens, their quiet talks, and even the brief touches that had occurred during training, accidental, yet unforgettable. One evening, the palace held a formal reception for visiting dignitaries from neighboring systems. The halls were adorned with crystalline chandeliers, and the air buzzed with the sound of conversation in multiple languages. Alara had chosen a gown of deep violet, hoping its elegance would give her some confidence. Yet as Cale approached her amidst the crowd, her pulse quickened. She felt the familiar tension tighten around her chest. You look radiant, Cale said quietly, close enough that only she could hear. Alara's cheeks warmed, and she struggled to maintain her composure. Thank you, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. They walked together through the halls, exchanging polite words with nobles and envoys. Yet their eyes constantly found each other amidst the crowd. It was an unspoken understanding, a shared secret in the midst of public expectation. Alara realized that she was beginning to trust him with more than just her thoughts. She was trusting him with her very presence, her unguarded self. Later, when the reception concluded, Cale escorted her to the solarium. The twin moons hung low, bathing the room in soft silver light. Alara sank into a cushioned bench, exhaling deeply, grateful for the quiet. Cale sat beside her, leaving just enough space to respect her boundaries while remaining close. I feel like I can breathe here, she admitted softly, her voice trembling with honesty. With you, it's easier. Cale glanced at her, his expression gentle. I feel the same. You don't have to perform or pretend. Just being yourself is enough. The weight of her shyness began to lift, replaced by a warmth she had not expected. She realized that the human warrior was more than a visitor or a curiosity. He was a companion, someone who could share in the quiet moments without judgment. And yet, even with this realization, she struggled to remain relaxed. Her instincts, honed by years of etiquette and observation, resisted the sudden freedom she felt. Days turned into months, and their bond deepened. They trained together, shared meals in quiet corners of the palace, and explored the gardens beneath the twin moons. Kale never rushed her, never demanded more than she could give, and gradually, Alara learned to embrace the comfort of his presence. She laughed more freely, spoke with more confidence, and even allowed herself the occasional playful tease small victories against the lingering shyness that had once dominated her life. One afternoon, as the suns of Lurien Prime set in brilliant shades of orange and lavender, Kale and Alara stood atop the palace walls, gazing at the horizon. The wind tugged gently at her gown, and she leaned slightly into his side, a gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago. "You've changed," Kale remarked quietly, his voice carrying no judgment, only observation. Alara smiled, her heart light. "Perhaps I'm learning to relax. Being near you makes it easier." He nodded, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "And you've helped me see that strength doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from patience and understanding." A comfortable silence fell,